Lots of floor yogis today, meditators. Okay, so welcome everybody. We'll start with our meditation practice, about 25-30 minutes. And make sure you're comfortable. So whether you're on a chair or a cushion on the floor, make sure that the spine is nice and straight. How's the volume? It's okay? It's a little low. I wonder, can we turn it up? Okay, great. And maybe I can put this a little closer. All right, how is that? That's a little better, huh? I'm getting over a head cold, so my ears are cloggy and I can barely hear myself. So, all right. Sitting up nice and tall. Take a few deep breaths. Exhaling, letting go of tension. It can be nice to even just sigh a little bit if you like. Inhale and exhale. Inhale, releasing tension. Feel it melting down into the earth beneath you as you settle into your seat. And allow the eyes to gently close or be at a comfortable angle past the tip of the nose towards the floor. If you tend to fall asleep or get dull in meditation, it can be nice to meditate with the eyes slightly open. On the other hand, if you are excitable and get distracted, closing the eyes can help internalize the attention. Feel what's appropriate for you. And then feel the belly in the breath, and the breath in the belly. Nice soft vase breath, like you're filling a vase full of water as you breathe in. And then emptying that vase with the out-breath, pouring it out. Let each breath bring you more deeply into relaxation. And taking a moment at the beginning of the practice to bring forth your motivation, your heartfelt wish for your practice, for your life. And then broadening this wish, this personal wish, to encompass the aspiration to practice for the benefit of all beings, which includes yourself. It's said that a vast motivation brings vast results. This vast motivation to wake up to your essence, to your true nature, your Buddha nature, for the benefit of all beings. The vast aspiration of compassion of the Bodhisattva, And then now imagine above the crown of your head, hovering in the space about a foot above your head, is your root teacher or your spiritual guide, luminous, appearing yet empty like a rainbow in the sky. This might be the Buddha, it might be Mother Mary, it might be Tara, Jesus. It might be an orb of light, some spirit guide that has given you inspiration in your life. Whatever speaks to you, this embodiment of wisdom, compassion. Imagine that this being is radiant, luminous, and is sitting on a lotus and moon seat. The moon is like the full moon, luminous, white, like a moon disk, and atop the moon disk is a lotus flower, and atop the lotus flower is this being of light. And this being or this energy is radiating love regarding all beings with compassion. And in this energy and in this being, all the root teachers, all of your guides are present in this one being or orb of light. And then reciting this simple prayer as I offer the words, let them permeate your being, become your own. I pray for your blessing, my teacher, great and completely worthy spiritual friend. I pray that you will cause love, compassion, and bodhicitta to arise in my mind. I pray for your blessing, my teacher, great and completely worthy spiritual friend. I pray that you will cause love, compassion, and bodhicitta to arise in my mind. And then imagine that this being, this energy of light, descends down through the crown of your head, the Brahma aperture, and sits in your heart in a pavilion of light, like an open shell. Luminous, glowing, resting in the center of your heart. This exercise in respect and devotion is known as Guru Yoga. You may start each session like this. And now we enter into the formal meditation, mindfulness of the breath, shamatha, or calm abiding. Taking the breath as our object, simply shift your attention now to the flow of the in and the out breath as it travels in through your nose or mouth, filling the body, and attending to the subtle sensations as the breath travels out of the body. Implementing the practice of counting each breath to help the mind stay with the breath. At the end of each exhalation, internally counting 1, 2, and so on, up to 21. This is a concentration practice. So when thoughts, fantasies, distractions arise, just label thought and gently come back to the flow of the in and the out breath. And start the counting again if you lost your place. See if you can count up to 21 without getting pulled away into fantasy. All the while maintaining this sense of relaxation, spaciousness, without clamping down or forcing the mind. Rather, like a horse, allowing it a broad pasture on which to range. Stay present, the sensations of the breath. Releasing distraction with the out-breath. Feeling the belly, in the body, with the breath. whatever thoughts appear within the space of the mind. Just simply observe and label thought. Don't get too interested in them. That's your normal behavior. Try something new. Release it and come to the breath again. Counting at the end of the out-breath. Stabilizing the attention. Staying here with the breath in the body. And for some, the counting is helpful. For others, it's not enough. If the mind feels like it needs more help, you can implement the simple phrase that the Buddha offered. Attending to the field of the body, I breathe in. Attending to the field of the body, I breathe out. Internally repeating this to yourself as you breathe in and out. The field of the body is simply the field of tactile sensations from the crown of the head to the soles of the feet to the periphery of the skin. It might be the feeling of the breath in the body, might be the feeling of the pants or belt around your waist as you breathe, might be the beating of the heart, tingling of the skin. Whatever arises within the field of tactile sensations is what is meant by this phrase, attending to the field of the body, I breathe in. Attending to the field of the body, I breathe out. Meaning staying and experiencing the moment-to-moment sensory experience. Being in the body, breathing. Releasing distraction, letting it go with the out-breath, and coming back to the breath. Attending, body, breathe in. Attending, body, breathe out is a shorter version. The main point is to focus the mind on the breath in a relaxed, clear, stable, moment-to-moment threading of the attention, noticing distraction as it arises, and coming back to the breath again and again. Last few minutes, release the technique and just ride the breath in and out. Let go of the counting or the phrase. Just let yourself be in the moment with the breath in the body. Stay. Feel the space, the relaxation. Finally, giving the mind a rest. And the intrinsic joy of this simple quality of presence. This birthright. Always there. Rest in that space. Thank you. So now we'll take a little tea break. That went by really fast for me. Did that go by fast? Not for everybody, I'm sure. Sometimes meditation seems like it's going on forever. When are they going to ring that bell? So we'll take a few minutes, maybe 6-7 minutes. There's tea over in the hall and a couple of bathrooms there and one over there. And also take a moment to turn to your neighbor and say hello. Maybe somebody new you can meet. Community. So let's do announcements. Is Ryan around? No. Well, I'll start and then we'll see what happens. So, a couple announcements about some upcoming events. First, I just want to remind you that the last Wednesday of every month we do a Feeding Your Demons class. So next week is that last Wednesday of this month, January already. And so I will introduce and then guide the practice. It takes about 30 minutes. It's a guided 5-step process to work with challenging thoughts, emotions, even like chronic pain. It's a wonderful Gestalt-based Buddhist practice, I guess you could say, in a nutshell, that helps to work with challenges. And I think all of us know that, especially when we sit down to meditate, we come face to face with certain patterns or habits that can be challenging and can actually kind of like co-opt our whole meditation practice, and we don't know what to do with those. It can be hard. Sometimes they're so strong that we can't blast them away with our mindfulness, with our superpower of mindfulness, because very often the superpower of mindfulness is not a superpower yet. It's a very weak power and has to be developed. And so sometimes just mindfulness is not always enough to work with negative thought patterns and strong emotions that are coming up. So Feeding Your Demons can be very helpful for that. So I offer that the last Wednesday of every month. Also, in that same vein, on the last Thursday of every month, we have a women's meditation sangha. And there are 4 of us ATS teachers who rotate and hold those. And so next week will be Juliana will guide that. And so come on out. That's from 5:30 to 7, the last Thursday of each month. Women's meditation sangha. Is that tomorrow?
It's tomorrow.
Next week is the 30th? Oh, right. Next Thursday is the 1st. Sometimes this happens. Yes, sometimes this does occur. So that is tomorrow. So the last Wednesday of the month is next week.
Right.
But the last Thursday of the month is tomorrow. Okay, so ladies, you want to come out for that. And then also March 3rd and 4th, Saturday, Sunday, I will be co-teaching a weekend with Noah Levine, Refuge Recovery and Feeding Your Demons. 2 very conducive practices to help work with self-defeating patterns of addiction. So for those in recovery or would like to be in recovery, and also for just any of us who are living in a human body, you can benefit, because if you think about it, we're all craving and addicted to something. So it might be thoughts, it might be our device, it might be chocolate, it might be heroin, it might be cigarettes, it might be sex, right? I mean, we're all just being in this body that has sensory functions. I think we all work with, the Buddha said that we suffer because we're constantly craving. We're desiring stimulation. We're not feeling a sense of satisfaction because why? Because we're cut off from our essence. We're cut off from our Buddha nature. And so there's like a strange memory that we once were totally satisfied and happy, but we don't know how we lost that, or we forgot. We're disconnected from it. And so we suffer and we crave and we try to fill that feeling of dissatisfaction and lack with chocolate or green tea or TV. So you do not have to be in recovery or be an addict to come to this weekend. I've gotten that question before. So everybody is welcome. You will learn about Refuge Recovery, which is a very wonderful system that Noah has developed, inspired by the 12-step program, but using the framework of Buddhism. 4 Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, classic foundational dharma, integrated in a way that is particularly helpful for those experiencing addiction. So feeding your demons is also a very good tool, a helpful tool to work with those cravings and addictions as well. So more coming on that soon. I'm actually working with some very wonderful people to develop a pilot study on feeding your demons. And we are probably going to be focusing with the community at ATS, and particularly refuge recovery. So it's still in the making, and so I don't want to announce it too soon, but there's some very exciting stuff coming up around that. So come next week and experience it if you've never experienced it, feeding your demons. Ryan, do you want to make any announcements? Or?
Just happy to have everybody here, and then the center is run on donation called dharma. So wherever you're able to, it's really helpful to keep these lights on and it's still open for all of it. Maybe you have any questions about the day along with a bunch of lovely flyers that people are happy to talk about it and answer the questions you might have.
Yeah, great, thank you. And if you guys want to volunteer, you can do that too, right? I think they're always looking for volunteers. It's a great way to be more involved in the community. Amy's helping with the YouTube. Thank you, Amy, and welcome everybody online. How many people do we have online tonight? 22. 22, see? It's really wonderful that we can offer this to people who can't be here in person. So welcome. And it's nice for the people in the room to know that too. If you're ever stuck in bed with the flu or need to get some kind of medical procedure that doesn't permit you to come on out, you can always tune in from afar. And that's a nice tool that ATS is able to offer people because of your generous donations as well. Last announcement. Some of you are familiar with the practice that I am very much engaged with and I teach called Chud. It's a practice, it's a Buddhist-based practice from Tibet that is sung and accompanied by a drum and a bell, and it's like a shamanic practice of healing, both for the individual, but also for the practitioner, but also for people and animals and actually the land. It's commonly done as a healing practice for the land as well. And I will be teaching a weekend retreat on the Chud in February 9th, 10th, and 11th in Berkeley. And so it's open to everyone. There are no prerequisites. And if you want to learn more about that, you can talk to me after class. It's listed on my website. So if you just search on Google my name, Chandra Easton, you'll find my website. And on the website is more information about the Chud retreat. So either in person or online, you can find out more about that. February 9, 10, and 11 in Berkeley. So now I would like to open it up to questions or reflections on the meditation practice, because what we're doing here is very important, and I don't want to give the impression that or perpetuate a general impression that mindfulness practice is kind of just a relaxation practice. What we're doing here is really important in the sense of we are cultivating concentration. We are cultivating the capacity for the mind and our attention to stay, which has wonderful implications in all aspects of our lives, not just alone meditation, right? And as I said last week, shamatha, or calm abiding, is the foundational practice in Buddhism where we attend to a meditative object. What is that? Well, very commonly that's the breath, but also it can be an image, like a tanka of a deity. You can gaze at a tanka like this of Tara, memorize it as best as you can, the shape, the colors, the patterns, and then close your eyes and try to recreate it in your mind as clearly as you can. That's a form of shamatha. Or you can gaze at a statue of the Buddha. Notice the patterns, the shape, the proportion, the color, the light. And then close your eyes and try to recreate it in your mind's eye. That is shamatha. You can say mantra, like Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. That is another meditative object that you can use to create or to cultivate what's called shamatha. So shamatha is a Sanskrit word that means calm abiding. It is folded into the larger umbrella term that's more used in modern or Western Dharma called vipassana. Like if you've ever gone on a vipassana retreat or a Goenka retreat, how many people have done like a 10-day Goenka retreat? Yes. So for the first 3 days, you have done, for 3 or 4 days, you've done shamatha, which is just stabilizing the attention. Stabilize the attention with the breath or with an object. Then, after that, then you move into what's called vipassana, right? Which means insight. Vipassana means special seeing. So it's insight is a common translation. Vipassana is the Sanskrit. Vipassana is the Pali. So they mean the same thing. Clear seeing, deep insight. And that is the next step in the stages of meditation. Because what you do at the beginning is you need to stabilize the attention. You need to train it, like you need to train a child. Stay. No, you can't get up from the table halfway through the meal. That's what I'm doing with my 9-year-old. What are you doing playing in the living room? You have not finished your dinner. Come back again. No, come back again. Why did you get up? I told you to get it. You know, it's just like, it's maddening. And oftentimes with the breath, it's the same thing. It's like the mind is off playing in the living room. No, why did you get up from the breath? Sit back down with the breath and finish. Finish. So we're, in a way, our attention is like an unruly child. Now, even if we're, 60. So, training, come back. And you have to be very careful not to get like this with it. Just like a mother. Sometimes I feel myself going like, like getting really angry and like clamping down. No, same thing with yourself. Spaciously, come back. Patient, just come back. Oh, it's a game, it's fun. Come back. Come back. Come back. Okay, I'm a little tired of this game, but at least I'm not, because meditation can get very claustrophobic. How many people have felt claustrophobic and like freaked out meditating? Yeah, I have. And that's a bummer. That's like you're in a cage. So we don't want that. So you may recall during the meditation I said, give your mind like a vast field to roam in. This is a really beautiful style that we find in the Tibetan teachings a lot. Basically they say, the mind is like a wild horse. If you try to clamp down on it and control it and cage or corral it, it will go crazy. It will burst through. It'll break away. But if you kind of gently, like a horse whisperer, coerce it, kind of sweetly bring it in with sounds and a good feeling, give it some space to tire itself out in its corral for a while, and then coax it gently, it will come and it will want to work with you. And it will be better than controlling it in a very forceful, constricting way. Another analogy is that the mind is like a flowing river. It's always spewing forth thoughts. That's the nature of the mind. Not the deeper nature, but that's kind of like the more superficial nature of the mind, is to produce thoughts. If you try to dam it with forceful meditation practice, it will burst the dam. Instead, just let it flow. Let it flow. And over time, it's said that flowing river of thoughts will begin to trickle like a stream through the desert over the sand, and it will, and then it will just remain calm. Or it will then be like a still lake. There are all sorts of different analogies, but you understand what I'm saying. We don't want to create this feeling of constriction and claustrophobia in meditation practice. That's why relaxation and spaciousness are very key ingredients to the meditative practice. But what happens when you deeply relax and become spacious, what do you think the pitfall might be? Fall asleep, space out. So we don't want that to happen. So then we bring in the quality of stability. The three main ingredients for shamatha: relaxation, stability, clarity. Classic textbook definition ingredients for your shamatha soup. Number one, relaxation. Put that in first. Why? Because without relaxation, you don't have meditation. It's something else. It's a panic attack or something. Anxiety. Number two, stability. What's stability? Stability is being able to stay with the breath. Stay, stay, stay. Connecting the dots. It's that kind of earth, quality of earth stability. Stay, stay. Not flying around, distracted. Stay, gentle, with relaxation. But with relaxation and stability, the mind can get kind of like dull, bland. So then you brighten it with the third ingredient. It's kind of like the lemon at the end in the soup, right? You squeeze some lemon, clarity. It enhances the flavor. It clarifies things. So we're not trying to train up in dullness and spaced outness. We've probably already got that really well figured out. We are trying to cultivate clarity, luminosity. Selwa is a word in Tibetan. Selwa. It said selwa is a natural, intrinsic quality of mind. So it's there, it's already there. So you just need to turn it up a little bit. So that's shamatha. That's shamatha. Vipassana then is based on the clarity, relaxation, stability that you've cultivated, like what Alan Wallace, one of my mentors, says. It's like you're creating a laser. So shamatha is like the laser. It's the instrument that allows you to pierce into the depths of the universe. Vipassana is actually then seeing and realizing the nature of reality based on that instrument of the laser that you've created. So Vipassana ultimately is insight. Insight into what? Impermanence, shunyata, emptiness, the true nature of existence, the true nature of mind. And so we're going to talk about impermanence in a moment, because that's the main theme of this class tonight. But I just want to give you guys, I want to really train you well. I feel like it's my responsibility to train you well in the foundations of meditation, because in a few weeks, when we start getting into more of the compassion practice of Tonglen, if you don't have a certain degree, you don't have to be perfect, but a certain degree of meditative concentration, then all the other practices that follow, like compassion practices and visualization and so on, are watered down and not as effective. So it's very important to be able to stay. Could some of you count to 21 without veering off? A few, yeah. Did some people get to 5 and realize they were drifting, and then they started again at 1, and then they were able to stay to 21? Yeah, that happened to me. I start planning what I'm going to say next, so I've got to stop doing that. It's always a practice. So that's actually quite advanced. Like in Zen, they do 1 to 10, and you can repeat the 10, 1 to 10, 1 to 10, 1 to 10. In the Tibetan tradition, especially like in the Lojong, the root texts that I use in particular by Jamgon Kongtrul, he uses count from 1 to 21. That's a really nice number because it's enough. it's kind of enough to get you set. When you get to 21, then you can let go of the counting usually. It's like 1 to 21 is like your training wheels. It's just getting you like off-gassing the activity and the stress of the day, slowly landing, getting here, you're arriving. Okay, you get to 21, then maybe it's like the rocket taking off, it's like that's when you can let go of the booster fuel thing.
John, can you start again? Because at first I was trying to do 21 on the inhalation, 21, which I wasn't getting obviously anywhere near there. And then I was like, this seems really like too much. So then I went like in the kumbhaka, and then that really didn't work. So are you just saying
each breath?
Oh, one.
Inhale,
two.
Exhale, 1.
Okay.
Inhale, exhale, 2. Yeah, good. I'm glad you asked. She's a yogi, so, yogis eventually work towards,
I was not even
many breaths with the in-breath and the out-breath. But I'm sorry if that wasn't clear. Yeah. So just inhale, exhale, at the end of the out-breath, count. 1. Inhale, exhale, 2. Inhale, exhale. And if you get distracted, don't try to keep going. Come back to 1. Yeah. I didn't spend too much time explaining that because we did it last week, and I was like, but yeah. Question or comment?
Question. So I understand the where you're offering relaxation and where stability comes in, but I feel like there's always this dullness in my mind. It's really my meditation and this lack of clarity that luminosity is not.
Yeah, bless you. Yeah.
It's in my body, but not in my mind.
You're not accessing it.
And I'm wondering, how do you? Where's the part where you cultivate the clarity, the luminosity?
That's the third phase. So if you've got, you get the relaxation, that's there, good. Then you've got the stability, good, that's there. Clarity can be cultivated in many different ways. Clarity is more associated with the head center, right? So stability is more with the belly. A feeling of open relaxation is more, it can be in the belly too, but the heart. And then the clarity is the head. Another way to think of it is, and this is how Alan Wallace teaches it, he's like the king of shamatha. Alan Wallace is the king of shamatha. He's written many books on shamatha. And his main way that he teaches shamatha is first relaxation, and that is attending to the field of the body, soothing the field of the body, using those phrases of the Buddha that I often use. So once that's happening, then he instructs people to cultivate stability, and he uses the belly center for that. And that's a very Zen practice. Zen focuses on the sensations of the belly a lot. It's a grounding experience, it's stabilizing, so that cultivates the quality of stability. And then the clarity is interesting, and that's more of Vipassana, Goenka style, Burmese style, you could say too, is attending to the subtle sensations of the breath or the air as it travels in and out of the nose. The temperature is usually cooler as it travels in. It's been warmed by the body, right? The breath. So then it's warmer when it comes out. And so that is more of bringing your attention. It's a wakeful experience. It's up more in the head center, and it's very focused here, whereas this is very grounding and earthy. So this, attending to the sensations of the breath between the upper lip and the nose, is one very effective way to cultivate clarity. Another way is visualization. So if you are lacking clarity in your meditation practice, then you could focus on one of those.
And so I find it interesting because when we focus on the breath, what you're saying is focusing on the belly is grounding. I experience that. There's a distinction between where we observe the breath and the benefit we realize.
Yeah. And I've done many long retreats with Alan with those techniques, and I have experienced that, absolutely. And it's a nice way to build the meditation practice and to be able to then access those qualities more readily. Yeah. Yeah. A good book that will go deeper into that is called Genuine Happiness by Alan Wallace. He teaches various phases of shamatha like I just described. He basically talks about those and then offers guided meditations in those. And then the latter part of the book is focusing on the four immeasurables, which are very important. Like the Dalai Lama says, cultivate shamatha vipassana, but then you have to balance those with the compassion practices, like the four immeasurables, which is loving kindness, which are loving kindness, compassion, equanimity, and joy. So those are very foundational and important practices because we develop the clarity and the mind and the ability to stay and be present and mindful, but then without a heart, without a compassionate heart, you don't have much. So then it's important to cultivate the heart. Okay. Any other questions about meditation? It's a very important project we're endeavoring on. This is not just, afterthought. Like, when we have to finally let go of our body, if we can stay and rest in our essential nature, then we've dying, no problem. Bring it on. They say the old grandmas in Tibet, all these fancy Rinpoches and Lamas, giving their Dharma teachings, but it's the old grandmas who just do their Om Mani Padme Hums all day, and they do their daily practice. And don't brag, don't show anything. You wouldn't even know they were great practitioners, but when they die, that's the moment. Because they say that a true practitioner who can merge with the elements and release into the nature of mind will manifest what's called the rainbow body. The body, the physical body, will dissolve back into the five elements. And the five elements appear as the five lights, and that's the rainbow. And so there are these great old stories of the grandma in the valley, the next valley over. You wouldn't know she was a great practitioner. But then, at the moment of death, her body does all that remains are the dead tissue, like the teeth and the nails and the hair, and the rest of the body dissolves into the elements. And you see rainbows in the sky. I don't know, but all I'm saying is meditation is about learning how to die. So this brings us to impermanence, the uplifting topic of the evening. Okay, so you have your handout. We are on point number 1, slogan 1. So point 1 is the preliminaries, which are a basis for Dharma practice. So we are at the new year, we are starting anew with our slogans. And I began a commentary on the first slogan, which is first train in the preliminaries. We covered the first aspect of these preliminaries, which was what? Who remembers? Did you do your homework? Yes, the preciousness of human life, of human existence. So that we are born into a life of freedom. We all have various, spectrum of freedom, of course, but we are not enslaved. We are not in a war-torn region. We have the freedom to practice Dharma. We have access to the Dharma. So we talked at length in this about this. This is the precious human birth is the first of what are called the 4 thoughts that turn the mind towards the Dharma. So the 4 thoughts that turn the mind towards the Dharma are what are called the preliminaries. Okay? The preliminaries. So tonight we'll talk about the second thought that turns the mind toward the Dharma, which is impermanence. Contemplating impermanence. And so it's not very hard. You don't have to look far to see impermanence. Look at your thoughts. Just think back on your meditation experience. Thoughts coming and going, coming and going. Think about your life. Reflect on your friendships. the old saying goes is that our friends, we never know. Impermanence is everywhere. Those who we hold most dear and think will be our friends forever may turn into our worst enemies. And on the other hand, those who are our worst enemies may one day turn into our greatest friends. Things are always changing, right? We're growing older. Whatever is born is subject to causes and conditions and goes through change and must eventually pass away, whether it's people, animals, tables, bells, microphones, cameras, everything, right? So we can see the truth of impermanence in our life, whether it's through things, experiences, people. The world is always changing. And what's also linked to this, of course, is the truth of death. So the four thoughts that turn the mind towards the Dharma are meant to be contemplations that help us really gain certainty and commitment in Dharma, in the fact that Dharma practice is really one of the most, if not the most important thing we can do in our life in order to live a truly meaningful life. And keep in mind, I am an ecumenical Buddhist. I appreciate all the world's religions. I was a religious studies major in college. I love studying philosophy. And I think Dharma is really cool and it makes the most sense to me. But I also appreciate all the world's religions. And when I say Dharma, I really like to always link it to the original meaning of Dharma before Buddha came along and taught anything. Dharma was a word used in the Vedas, in Indian culture, in Sanskrit, that simply means truth. Dharma is truth. It's reality. It's understanding things as they are. The suchness, dharmata, means suchness. So Dharma is important. And so the second of the four thoughts that turn the mind, meaning impermanence and contemplating the uncertainty of the time of our passing, is very important. And what's interesting is that at first glance it might seem like this is kind of a morbid topic or something that might sink you into depression, but it's actually very inspiring if you actually do it, and enlivening, and it helps to experience more vitality and appreciation of life. And so in a moment I will actually guide us through a contemplation so that you can have a sense of what that's like. A great quotation by Nagarjuna, one of the wonderful thinkers around the turn of the millennia in India. He said, "Like flickers in the flurries of 1,000 ills, more fragile than a bubble in a stream, in sleep each breath departs and is again drawn in. How wondrous that we wake up living still." So in terms of impermanence in our own lifespan, it's very important not to take life for granted, but to think, like the great sages of old, I could die right now. I could walk out of here and not be able to take another breath. I could get struck down by a car. I could have a brain aneurysm. I could literally die right now. And so could you. What if this was your last moment? How would you want to live that last moment? How would you want to be? What state of mind would you want to be in? I want to read you a quotation from this wonderful book called The Words of My Perfect Teacher, Kunzang Lame Shelung. It's a complete translation of a classic introduction to Tibetan Buddhism, and it's got a really great chapter on impermanence. So I'm going to give you a flavor of what it's like to meditate on impermanence and death. And if you'd like, you can close your eyes or not, or just rest with your eyes open. This is meant to be a contemplation. Meditate single-mindedly on death, all the time and in every circumstance, while standing up, sitting, or lying down. Tell yourself, this is my last act in this world, and meditate on it with utter conviction. On your way to wherever you might be going, say to yourself, maybe I will die there. There is no certainty that I will ever come back. When you set out on a journey or pause to rest, ask yourself, will I die here? Wherever you are, you should wonder if this might be where you die. At night, when you lie down, ask yourself whether you might die in bed during the night, or whether you can be sure that you are going to get up in the morning. When you rise, ask yourself whether you might die sometime during the day, and reflect that there is no certainty at all that you will be going to bed in the evening. However, just to meditate on death will not suffice. The only thing of any use at the moment of death is the dharma. So you also need to encourage yourself to practice in an authentic way, never slipping into forgetfulness or loss of vigilance, remembering always that the activities of samsara, or the cycle of existence, are transient and without the slightest meaning. This conjunction of body and mind is impermanent, so do not count on it as your own. It is only on loan. And the Buddha said, to meditate persistently on impermanence is to make offerings to all the Buddhas. To meditate persistently on impermanence is to be inspired by all the Buddhas. To meditate persistently on impermanence is to be guided by all the Buddhas. And to meditate persistently on impermanence is to be blessed by all the Buddhas. Of all footprints, the elephants are outstanding. Just so, of all subjects of meditation for a follower of the Buddhas, the idea of impermanence is unsurpassed. And then Padampa Sangye said, at first, to be fully convinced of impermanence makes you take up the Dharma. In the middle, it whips up your diligence. And in the end, it brings you to the radiant Dharmakaya. Dharmakaya is the Dharma, the body of truth, your true nature. So, of course, this isn't for the faint of heart. And yet, it feels so good to acknowledge this in a way, like, okay, it's true that we live as if we would live forever, and yet we know we don't. And our culture hides impermanence so well, and it encourages us to avoid it at any cost. Now, I know that Stephen Levine's book is very perhaps well known in this community because Stephen is, or was, he passed away, Noah's father, Noah Levine's father, who founded Against the Stream. Stephen Levine was a really wonderful Buddhist teacher, and also his main passion was working in hospice. And he helped many people transition through their big final moment of moving on from one life to the next. And he, through his many years of working with the dying, he saw how swiftly people were able to transform and let go of old patterns and find a deeper sense of happiness and satisfaction in the final years of their life. And particularly in the final year, when people knew, I only have a year or maybe 6 months to live, he said their evolution very often would speed up. And particularly those who could let go of their possessions, let go of their old habits or resentments, and get more real and honest with themselves and with their loved ones and their family members. It's those people who died without regret. And this touched him so profoundly that he decided to do an experiment and live a year as if it were his last. And it transformed him so much that he wrote a book about it. And so I know Vinny is guiding a group called A Year to Live. He's done it before. I've done it with a group of friends. You don't have to do a formal group. You can get the book with some friends and read it together. And it's very clear on how to do it. There's all sorts of great exercises and journaling that you do. It's kind of, you take inventory, you look back over your life, and you make amends where it's appropriate. And then at the end of the year, you have a feast, as if it were your final feast, and you invite your friends and family, whoever you would want to spend your final feast with. So in a couple weeks, I'm going to be having my final feast with my group of friends that we've been reading the book together with, and we'll do some writing, and we'll read aloud some of our reflections of the year. And so it's a beautiful book. And he wrote, Socrates recommended that we should always be occupied in the practice of dying. This is Socrates. We should always be occupied in the practice of dying, meaning like, what if I died tomorrow? How would I want to live today? Like that. And he says also, so did the Dalai Lama. Recently, when someone asked him what he would like to do next, he answered that he was 58 years old. This is about 25 years ago. At the time Stephen Levine wrote this book, the Dalai Lama was 58. Now he's in his early 80s. So the Dalai Lama said that what he would like to do next, now that he was 58 years old, he felt that it was time to complete his preparations for death. And so that's a beautifully written book. I really like this book. I highly recommend getting that. So I'd like to read one more quotation and then open it up for you to share. One of the great masters of Tibet, the great yogi saint Milarepa, he said, fearing death, I went to the mountains. Over and over again, I meditated on death's unpredictable coming, and I took the stronghold of the deathless, unchanging nature. Now I am completely beyond all fear of dying. So, this deathless state, the state beyond birth and beyond death, it's ever present. It's here with us right now. It's only the dualistic thought patterns that are born and die, born and die, born and die. Beneath that, what's permeating that? What is that luminosity that is always shining like the sky, like the sun always shining in the sky? That's what we become familiar with in meditation practice. That's said to be this deathless, unchanging nature, completely beyond all fear of dying. Because when we taste that, we realize that death is an illusion. Death ultimately is an illusion. Isn't that strange to say, but also intuitively feels true deeply. On a relative level, birth and death occur, yes, but on an ultimate level, they don't. There is no birth and death. Thich Nhat Hanh talks about this really beautifully. When were you born? Is it at the time that your birth certificate says you were born? No, you existed before that. But when were you conceived? We don't really know when that happens either, right? So if you can't pinpoint a time, you could even go back, well, maybe did you exist as a part of your mother and a part of your father in some way before it came together? Maybe there was consciousness beyond that. You can't actually pinpoint when you were born. And likewise, the death certificate, that's a joke too. Do you know exactly, like, is that the exact moment that you died? I mean, in certain yogic traditions, they say that you don't die until the mind leaves the body. But that's not exactly when the heart stops. So the death certificate, these are relative. It's like saying a stick is long, but relative to what? So that's epistemology, and we can get into that. And the Heart Sutra is very good at talking about that. Relative versus ultimate truth. But on the ultimate level, there is no birth and death. That is the hypothesis. So find out for yourself. Meditate. So what do you think? Impermanence, death, uplifting, or a downer? But maybe an important downer. And a downer that makes us more mature and realistic and appreciating even this boring moment that I have in my body with my breath. Another breath, ugh. I hate mindfulness of the breath. It's so boring. But I'm here. How wonderful.
It's interesting you were talking about this last moment. Every minute can be your last moment. I was raised by someone who was so traumatized by life that as a small child, we were constantly told, this could all end at any minute. You could be dead. They could come into the front door and that's it. So I have this kind of old memory of that being true, but in a very insecure, unevolved, dark, kind of scary. And having to have the opportunity to develop a practice that actually takes it in a whole other direction is, it's confusing. I mean, it's intriguing. It's very nice. But it's very confusing, where I always feel like there's this shadow of that scary insecurity that end of life could represent. And it came very honestly from someone who was thoroughly and truly frightened at growing up, being treated as though she could die at any minute. So that practice, for me, I'm really trying to cultivate it because now she's reaching the end of her life. And wanting to offer the support to maybe open that up so that she can also see that it's not necessarily a scary thing. It's not necessarily the culmination of all her fears come to pass at this moment. That it's kind of a gentle, who knows, energetic shift, threshold into another existence. You know, I don't know. I don't even know how to phrase it. I don't want to give her any images to feed her with my thoughts. I want her to have whatever she needs to have for it, but to try to offer it as maybe exemplified in my behavior and my attitude to cultivate a relationship that isn't scary, that passive.
Yeah, I mean, if you develop that capacity within yourself to not be afraid of impermanence and death, then even just holding her hand through that and, in a sense, modeling that fearless state might be enough, without words even. It is about fearlessness. And I think that these types of contemplations develop that capacity of fearlessness. Fear is the ego saying, no! Right? So if we realize that that small sense of egoic self is not truly who we are, like one of my teachers says, things don't end well for the separate self. It's got to die. It's got to die. It's not even really a thing. It's like an apparition. Who am I? Who is Chandra? You can't, it's not really there. I'm not one thing. And then that dying, it feels terrifying in the beginning, but then when you do it again and again, like the Dalai Lama, when he talks about preparing for death, he's actually in his meditation practice going through what are called generation and completion stage practices, where it's too complex for me to go into now, but you're actually, through mantra, visualization, you dissolve your identification onto this material self, and you become something greater. So he is literally practicing dying every morning. And so is anybody else who's doing these types of practices, so that when the time comes to actually pass, there is no fear. So that you're used to the small self dying away. Oh, it's not really anything. It's just an illusion. It's like a mirage.
So it's basically like a letting go of the ego state.
Yes. It's the ego that constricts and gets afraid. Because we live our whole life thinking we are our body. But if we touch it, yeah. Exactly. So my intuition right now is if you're comfortable with that and you know that, and just you're breathing with her and being with her and loving her and modeling that fearless state could help. There's also a great book you could give her if you like giving books, called Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. It's meant to be a helpful guide in hospice and when approaching that phase in one's life, but I read it in my 20s. It changed my life. Tibetan Book of Living and Dying.
My secretary here is ready.
Okay, it's 9 o'clock, so it's time to close. Let's take a moment, a quiet moment. The homework assignment for the week is to contemplate impermanence. The only certainty is the uncertainty of our time of passing. How would we want to live our last moments? Yeah. And let's take a moment to dedicate or share any positive energy that's come from our practice and discussion tonight for the benefit of all beings everywhere. Thank you. So I'll stay a little longer if people want to come up and ask questions or learn more about the Chud retreat. And thank you all. We'll see you again.
Ask, is anybody interested in reading this book? It sort of relates to, it's an old book, but maybe if I put it over there.
Yeah, Arnie's going to donate a book,
Yeah.
Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, a fabulous old classic. If anybody wants it, they can pick it up. Maybe you could put it on the bookshelf or
Do that.
the desk. Thank you, Arnie, and welcome back. Hi. Okay, now I'm going to turn off the microphone.